Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alicia, will you please do a roll call?
Yep. Lori Blargen. Here. Ian McDonald.
Here.
Matt Foucault.
Here.
Lacey Oster.
Here.
Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Cherie Lang. Here. Marge Below.
Okay, our district mission. Together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Is there a motion to approve our agenda for this meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public comment, I didn't receive anything. Shannon, did you receive
No.
anything for public comment? Okay, then moving on to our listening session summary. It's my understanding there was nobody at the listening session?
Right.
Perfect. Okay, not perfect, but yes. And then moving on to our superintendent's report.
All right, I have a couple things tonight. Wanted to start with kind of a 50,000 foot view in terms of a budget update. So as you know, we've been working many months on trying to navigate kind of where things were going to land at the end of 22-23, and then looking ahead for the next 2 years in particular in terms of kind of the budget outlook and what do things look like. So needed to go through obviously a pretty extensive process to close out all of 22-23 and then see where we land or landed with revenue and expenses, those kinds of things. Wanted to get through our audit as well, just to make sure we have everything kind of I's dotted, T's crossed in terms of our budget, specifically before we look at any type of compensation for staff. As you know, we've kind of been putting that on the back burner for now until we were able to kind of figure out where exactly we were going to land. So we have a little bit more work that we need to do, but looking at a combination of the reductions that were made last spring, knowing now that we have information from the state for the next 2 years, which is helpful to be able to forward plan a bit. Closing out 22-23, kind of a combination of we ended up spending a bit less than anticipated, revenue slightly higher than anticipated. So basically what that means is we believe we will be able, in terms of compensation, to provide steps and some level of a percentage on top of that. I would say we have probably a few more weeks before I'm able to say, and this is what we officially recommend. But I want to be very public in talking about that we likely will bring a recommendation that involves differentiated pay as we address our support staff. Really looking at potentially giving support staff, as an example, a percentage higher than the rest of the staff, just as we try to look at evening out. We know that our support staff, and we've known this for a while, is significantly underpaid, specifically in terms of our neighbors. And we want to make sure, as part of our new strategic plan, is retaining the fantastic staff that we have. So we've been looking at a variety of scenarios in terms of what that looks like, and Dave has done a phenomenal job. That's a big job, a stressful job of managing, a budget that big, especially navigating all the things from last spring. But we feel like, in a couple weeks we'll be able to bring a more official recommendation in terms of a compensation package. This is information that I'm sharing with staff this week, literally exactly what I'm telling you, that I met with the elementary today. I've got the high school, middle school, and the support staff yet to meet with this week. So we feel good about that. A lot of work was done last spring, to kind of get us in this spot to be able to get a balanced budget. So we feel good about that. But more to come, but at least wanted to kind of put on the table so you had some evidence of the fact that we're working really hard on trying to get this all figured out and be able to bring an official recommendation to the board in terms of compensation. My goal would be September. We have a few loose ends we just need to tie up because frankly we are being, I would say, overcautious just in terms of we've got all the books in place and we don't have some sort of a surprise, which I don't anticipate, but just because of all the things we've navigated, wanted to make sure that we are extremely comfortable with where we are and presenting compensation that's sustainable, so we don't have to navigate additional reductions again in the near future to be able to maintain the compensation we bring forward. So So that's the budget. So just quick update on referendum 2023. We had our third auditorium core planning group meeting today. It was awesome. Tons of great feedback as we continue to provide Wold and Market Johnson kind of our non-negotiables from our group. People that are watching, just as a reminder, it's a group of students and parents, community members, staff members, providing all kinds of input of things we like, things we don't like, and what's going to fit our budget, what's going to fit our non-negotiables of 600 seats, those kinds of things. So it's been a really, for lack of a better word, fun process, just kind of talking about we like this, we don't like that. And really now we've given Wold enough information where our next meeting they will bring back some pretty detailed floor plans in terms of giving some visuals of, hey, this is what we think, this is what you're asking for, what we think this is going to look like, but that'll take about a month. We also had a really good discussion today of thinking about and trying to be mindful of future expansion and future projects on campus. Not that are necessarily going to happen next year, but as we're talking about placement of the auditorium, what does that look like? Where is it going to make the most sense? So Wold presented a variety of options today. All of them come with pros and cons. All of them come with, well, if we do this, that works for this, but you probably have to give and take someplace else because as we add on an auditorium versus building an auditorium to a brand new building, right? We have some constraints that we're trying to work around, but all things that are doable. But we've talked about being mindful of future gym expansion, parking expansion, soccer field, classroom expansion, potentially building expansion, when and if potentially we would add another building. And Wold has obviously been a part of these conversations since 2018, so they're really knowledgeable on just some of the other conversations that have happened. But that was a really good discussion as we just kind of talk about what's going to make the most sense, and again, fitting into our budget and putting together an auditorium that we feel our community would be really proud of. So more to come on that. Fawn and I had a discussion today. We're thinking in October, having Wold and Market Johnson come back and give the board a more formal presentation with some visuals of kind of where we are with the auditorium. He thought September might be pushing it a bit, so probably looking at like the October work session, having them come back and kind of give you a grander overview of, from the design perspective, where we are with the auditorium. Okay, so it's exciting, very cool stuff. The only other thing I have is that we welcomed staff back to campus today, which was fantastic. Right, Cody?
Absolutely.
There you go. It's always just I get super fun, right? Everyone coming back, we kicked off this morning with the breakfast and a little bit of celebration in the MPR. We're looking forward to not having to celebrate in the MPR and eventually doing that in our new auditorium, but great energy, lots of great discussions. All the buildings were extremely busy today, but it's always fantastic to have staff back on campus and welcoming new staff and just kind of seeing the campus come alive again when everyone's back on campus. So, fun day, busy week, but lots of great things happening. So that's what I have.
Does Market Johnson or Wold have like a schedule that they can share with us? About
Yeah,
when
so
we'll see?
they do, but I can make sure that's part of when they present.
Okay.
Or do you want something sooner?
No, that's fine.
Yep.
So people, I've just had the question, when
Yeah, it's been a lot of
really
questions
see
since it started.
Yeah.
things going on, what's happening when things happen.
Yeah, I mean, the rough answer is, immediate spring, right?
Yeah.
But I can have them give you, they had some visuals, if you remember, too, even just in our presentations, too, so.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was still what they
Yep.
were thinking and feeling, or
Yep.
things had to be adjusted, because there's stuff that probably should be ordered now.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get them before next year.
Yep. I will make sure that's a part of it.
Has there been any discussion about solar energy being part of this? When we passed the referendum in 2019, there were rebates and incentives for school districts to incorporate solar energy in their building projects.
Mhm.
Has that been brought up at all?
He hasn't brought that up specifically. I know we've talked a lot about lighting and LED lights and those kinds of things, but if you're looking for something a little bit deeper, I would say that hasn't necessarily been brought up yet. I guess it doesn't mean maybe they're not thinking about it, but that hasn't been a part of our initial discussions, but I can,
Could you
Bring it
ask
up.
about it,
Mhm.
especially if those incentives and rebates are still available?
Do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Other questions? The financial report is there. Are there any questions regarding that, like the reports? Okay, then moving on to our advanced operations. I'll kind of leave this one over to you as well, Shannon, and the adoption of the P cards.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pass it over to my good friend Dave.
Okay.
He's ready.
P cards, so we're kind of jumping
Dave, do you
into
mind
this.
coming up, just because then I think that you can be heard for people that are watching, that I don't think they hear you on the microphone. Thank you.
So, P cards. We're jumping into this because we had we discovered that over the years, our previous credit cards that admin use a bit, but not very frequently. Over the years, the authorized user has changed around. It was under Mark's name, and it ended up being under Jody's name. And so we had to change that anyway, and to give somebody else the authorization with the card that we had, they were requiring personal credit to be on the person's individual credit. So we said, we're not doing that. That's not how we operate as a district. And so we started looking around for other credit cards that would accept the district as a state entity rather than a 501c3, which we're not. And we were having some issues getting different options to do that. So we said, well, we've been working incrementally, slowly on P cards for years now. We're working on the language when we have time, kind of circling back. Why don't we just start that up with the extremely limited 7 admin cards, and then work through the process essentially with Skyward, with AP throughout the year, and get all those hurdles kind of taken care of throughout this year, and then roll out as we have been wanting to do to the fuller department staff in the coming years. So anyway, this is a resolution. If you read it, it's very minimal. You're just giving us the authorization to essentially start with the bank that runs the cards.
Do you want to explain, in case somebody's watching and doesn't understand, what a P card is?
Sure, it functions like a credit card. Technically, it's a debit card, so we put certain limits on each card. But it will work in effect the same as the credit cards have worked. And it has all sorts of different structures, different regulation. The quicker we repay, the higher our rebate is at the end of the year. The more we spend on the cards, the higher the rebate. So it's a little bit of a complex formula, but many districts use this. This is through my professional organization, actually from Illinois. So this is run in the states all around us use this. Many school districts use this. Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. So it's a nice program where we can get some incentive back, but it takes a fair amount of setup on the front end, and that's where we've been chipping away at it, but we haven't gotten there for a full rollout, because there's a lot of things you have to incorporate and have people understand, as far as, you know, tax reimbursement, as far as reconciling, because whoever's responsible for the card has to also reconcile it in Skyward themselves. So there's a little bit of a process, and it'll take some training to get it going. But once everybody's trained and everybody gets it, it should be actually easier for everybody.
Will it save us money, make us money? Is there any
So the rebate
benefits
for-
financially?
Yeah, so the credit cards that we've used previously have had some rebate as well. We usually get some gift cards with those for different PD things. This, like I said, has a variable rebate percentage, but the biggest factor is that if we get to the full rollout and we can use it as much as possible, then you'll start to see a more significant rebate that can be used for other things, not just like little gift cards. Some districts, depending on your utility, I've talked to districts that pay their utilities with their P cards. So you really can start adding up, you have to look at the different options of what will accept that payment.
I know that's the form of payment CISA uses as well, or
Mhm.
CISA organization. Thanks for explaining it.
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure, I mean, I'd heard of P cards, but I didn't really know exactly what they were or how they worked. So I had looked up some information online, and this organization might be something that you belong to, the Government Finance Officers Association.
No, the one we're working with is ASBO out of Illinois.
But they were talking about all the benefits, but they also said that there are some things that you need to make sure that you set up up front that perhaps you're alluding to. Things like, you know, to make sure that we have a policy and that we have stuff in the employee handbook about it and training, you alluded to training.
Yes. Yes, it's, because it functions like a debit card, if you make mistakes, it's harder to fix them. And so, you know, we still want to follow purchasing procedure, which means that you get authorization in advance to make a purchase. You enter a requisition, it's approved by your supervisor, then you use the P card to make the purchase.
Oh,
So the intent is to make it all flow the same way, but you still have some issues. You know, now if you're traveling and you want to buy a book or something from a speaker you saw, maybe you pay tax on that, right? Well, it functions a little differently with a debit card. And so how we fix that is also a little different. So there is a lot of front-end policy, procedure, and then forms for people to sign off so that they are authorized to use it, they're responsible for it, they reconcile it. That's the big logistical hurdle that's taken us time. We haven't had the time to devote to rolling it out in the big picture, so I feel like this is actually a nice opportunity for us to start really small,
okay.
work through it this year, while also solving the problem of now we don't have to try to find a credit card company that will deal with us on a non-personal basis.
Thank you.
Neola has sample policies too that we'll
Okay.
look at and bring forward,
Okay.
so.
Any other questions for Dave? I know this was, regularly, it is listed as, to approve the, adoption of this, so looking at that just because of, Jody leaving and some of those logistics, why it wasn't brought to our previous meeting. But there is need for a resolution tonight to be approved for now versus waiting till mid-September, correct?
Yes, and the timing is, it was kind of like, we're not getting good options, why don't we just try this? So that's why it ended up not being at a work session prior.
So do we need a motion then to approve the resolution as presented in 4A1?
And if everybody had a chance to open up the resolution that is linked there, then we will approve that and we'll go through a roll call vote as well after we do that.
I will make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing issuance or of the individual procurement cards or P cards as shown.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I will go ahead and do a roll call vote because it's asking for specific yeas and nays. So, Bruce,
Yes.
Sheree,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Ian,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. So motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dave, for clarifying.
Absolutely.
Okay, continuing to move on with our consenting the agenda with minutes, board bills, personnel donations. There's kind of a lot there, so if there's any questions or discussions with any of those pieces or to move forward.
I'll make a motion to approve 5A 1, 2, 3, B 1, C 1 and 2, and D 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then continuing on to our general information, September 11th will be our work session. And also at that will be our budget hearing and annual meeting. And then September 25th will be our regular session with the listening session that's 30 minutes prior. For our Once Around the Table. Matt, do you want to start us?
I got nothing.
I just want to say welcome back to all staff. Please know that your work is valued, and I hope that we can have a wonderful 23-24 school year. Bruce?
Thanks, Dave and Shannon, for the budget update. It's good news, and excited to hear more.
Cherie?
Excited to hear about the auditorium update. That is going to be very exciting. That's something we've needed for a very long time. So it'll be great to see that come to fruition. And yes, welcome staff. Very exciting.
Lori?
Congratulations to Leslie Thomas. She earned another grant which assists the district. The majority of those dollars goes to the district to assist with payroll expenses, but it also benefits the employees of the Spartan Kids Club with some bonuses. Thank you to the Somerset Lions Club for donating to the wheelchair for our elementary school. WASB is having regional meetings this fall, and our Region 4's meeting is on October 4th in Menominee. If you can't attend in person, there is going to be an online meeting on November 1st at 7 p.m. that you can register for as well. And our first home football game is this Friday. I hope you can make it, and I hope you plan to purchase 50/50 tickets for our Somerset Scholarship that go to our graduating seniors. Thank you.
Thanks. Ian?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Then moving forward, is there a motion to adjourn into closed session of the board pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 1985 1C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the board has jurisdiction?
So moved.
Is there a second?
One second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will now move into closed session at 6:22.